Please join me in welcoming Attorney General Eric Holder.
Well, good morning. Oh, come on, folks. Good morning. It doesn't get much better than this. You've done it. You've accomplished it. You're on your way out, right? Come on. Today, as you take leave of professors that you will never forget and friends you've come to rely on, you are entering an uncertain world. One that is burdened by recession, but showing signs of recovery, an age of unprecedented challenge, an era of new threats, and a time of war. Now, I realize the circumstances before you are not what you imagined or what you hoped for when you first arrived on this campus, but you must resist the temptation to feel as though you have been dealt a bad hand. You have not been dealt a bad hand. You have been given a rare opportunity. You should also consider how many other students have passed through this campus during similar times of challenge. In fact, BU's inaugural class of law students arrived here during some of the most dramatic and difficult days in this city's long history. It was 1872 when this university welcomed its first class of future attorneys, a year that would bring the Great Boston Fire, which destroyed much of downtown and nearly all of the financial district. Months later, the panic of 1873 hit, launching a nationwide and then a worldwide depression. When that first class received their diplomas, our union was still struggling to reconstruct itself, still working to realize the vision of a president who had been slain, and still seeking to navigate through the web of legal questions raised and legal challenges made in the aftermath of the Civil War. And you thought you had it bad. Through our history, young lawyers were on the front lines of efforts to abolish slavery and segregation, to secure voting rights for women and civil rights for all, to provide health care for our seniors and our poor, and to guarantee decent wages for our workers. And now, graduates, it's your turn. When I was in your position, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew where I was going to go. To the Department of Justice, where I would be working in its new Public Integrity section. Or consider that when I became Attorney General just last February, there was not a single line in the nearly 225-year history of the United States Code that referred explicitly to gender identity. Today, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Act, which the President signed into law last October, does just that, finally protecting our nation's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered individuals from vicious hate crimes. Leela Josephine Robinson graduated in '81, that's 1881, as the first female law graduate in Massachusetts and one of the first in the nation. Takeo Kikuchi, class of 1877, was one of the first Japanese people to study law in the United States, and less than a decade after graduating, co-founded Chuo University, one of the most prestigious schools in Japan. Clarence Benjamin Jones, a 1959 graduate, became one of Martin Luther King's closest counselors, and only 4 years after graduating, helped him to write his I Have a Dream speech for the March on Washington. Consuelo Northrop Bailey, class of 1925, was the first female lieutenant governor in the United States. Emanuel Hewitt, the first African-American graduate of BU Law in 1887, argued the only criminal trial in Supreme Court history. And of course, Edward Brooke, who received his LLB in 1948 and his LLM in 1949, became the first African-American senator elected by popular vote. Now he's a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. For each one of you now joins a professional legal community that's more attuned than ever to its obligation to give back, and at no charge, to help the most vulnerable and underserved among us.